Hey everyone, Chris Haddon, Jason Balin here with the HMB podcast. Check us out anytime at hardmoneybankers.com. Today we are talking about the importance of relationships, long-term relationships with all the people you do business with. Now this could be your lender, it could be your attorney, CPA, contractor, real estate agents. The list goes on. There's a lot of people you need on your success team, as they call it. And building these relationships over time leads to a lot of good things. I mean, important third-party services and advice. It leads to more deals. It leads to additional capital being raised, the whole nine. So really focusing on those relationships and knowing how important they should be is something that, like, in real estate investing, some folks are really good at it, and I think some folks miss the boat on this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like so many people look at every deal or every transaction as a one-off transaction. It's like, okay, cool. I sold, I bought a house from this lady and, I renovated it and I made some money and maybe I raised a few bucks for it and it's over. And it's like, that's so far from the truth. I mean, if you're in the game of one-off transactions, it's just an uphill battle forever, right? Who wants to do uphill, one-off transactions over and over and over and over and over? You want to build a book of business and, work with the same people over and over and over. Now, I recognize that if you buy a property from somebody, a distressed seller, they're probably not going to have another property to sell to you. But that being said, they're going to have friends, they're going to have family, they're going to have referrals, they're going to potentially, be an advocate for you if you help them out. And this game is such a long play. I mean, business in general is a long play, but so many people, I feel like they don't treat it like a long play. If you have an email marketing list, which you should, obviously, you should have an email database for buyers, sellers, real estate agents, attorneys, private lenders, whatever, everybody. They should all be in your email database for the most part. And it could be one email database that's relevant for all of them. But you never know what's going to happen, right? A seller might not have a deal right now, or maybe you do a deal for a seller right now, and then you don't talk to them for years down the road, but then they come back to you, right? Or they refer something to you, or their neighbor has something. So many people forget it. I feel like it's kind of stuck in our heads because we spend a lot of time on marketing and we understand, the cost per acquisition and the value of every lead, not just client or sale that we have, but actually every lead that we have in. And just staying in front of people kind of on a regular basis and treating them not necessarily like a deal or a transaction, but like a human. And a relationship. I mean, the key word here is relationship. It's not just you flip a house and you treat it like a deal. That's okay. But like, who are the relationships made with when you flip that house? There's a seller, right? There's a real estate agent. There's multiple contractors. There's some sort of capital source. Like there's 5 to 10 relationships that are getting built during this transaction. And if you actually care and treat it like a relationship, those 5 or 10 contacts can turn into much bigger things and better things if they're treated the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about some of the best investors in the game, and I'm thinking of one guy who is an HMB client, comes to us a few times a year for loans, has many other sources of capital. He's a really successful investor in DC. And obviously he's a good operator. He knows exactly what he's doing with construction and flips, and he's got a bunch of rentals and other stuff too. But he also has awesome relationships. Like he's one of those guys who knows everyone in town, and whatever pops up, he's got someone to call about it, right? And he also gets fed deals just because he's a friendly guy and he's easy to work with and he's a good executor. And sometimes we'll ask him, we'll see these awesome buys that he gets, and we'll ask him like, how'd you get this deal? And it'll be some kind of inside source, some kind of friend who's like, oh, somebody called me from the auctioneer's office, or somebody at court, or some estate attorney, or like somebody who knows him as an operator and likes the guy. Just gives him a call and feeds him. Sorry, hold on, dog's barking. It feeds him a really under market deal that is like surprising to us, and that's all relationship based. That's how he got that. You're not going to find those buy prices on MLS. You just won't. And so it's just another example of how those good long-term relationships lead to profitable deals, right?
Yeah, no, it's out. They're out there, and it still baffles me that so many people just miss the boat on it. I mean, how many times are someone in the transaction pissed off, right? That something went wrong. Like, the title company's pissed off, the buyer's pissed off, the seller's pissed off. It's got to be a win-win-win for everybody. If a transaction's not a win-win, it's not going to work. If you buy a property from a distressed seller and they feel like they've been had, they're going to be pissed off and drag your name around town, and they should drag your name around town, right? If it's not if it's not a win-win, right? Same thing. You're wholesaling a property, and potentially, the buyer thought they were purchasing something differently than what was expected, right? I mean, I'm a huge advocate for wholesalers. I actually think wholesalers play some of the best, because we're marketers. I understand the importance of it, and as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter what a wholesaler makes in a deal. Right? I don't care if they make $100,000 on a deal, as long as it's disclosed and everybody knows. It doesn't matter if they can sell it and make $100,000. Who cares? Like, it doesn't bother me. But there's instances where someone buys a property, substitute purchase agreement from an auctioneer, and it's been going on for a while, and the buyer gets to the table and they're like, wait a second, what are all these what are all these additional taxes I wasn't expecting? Interest is still accruing. So again, I put that on the wholesaler. I'm just using this as an example, obviously, but I put that on the wholesaler of like, hey, disclose this stuff up front. Don't just try to, hope it goes through at the closing table, right? That's the last thing you want to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with those fees on there. There's nothing wrong with it. It was just you didn't set proper expectations. And there's lots of examples like that, tons of examples. It's not just that. So if you treat it like a relationship, I mean, damn well that chances are the buyer wants the deal, especially in this economic market right now. They're like, the buyer wants that deal. They're going to pay for it, and they'll probably overpay for it, and you'll get away with it, and you'll work out. But you're not going to get another deal from them. And the goal is to get more and more and more and more deals. I mean, if you're a wholesaler and you have good deals, you're going to have the same buyers over and over and over and over. You're not going to have to spend money on marketing for those buyers. They're going to come to you over and over and over. So think about it. I mean, if we screwed some of our borrowers that we lend to, we'll never get another loan for them, right? Mm-hmm. It costs us to acquire a client sometimes the same amount of money that we make on their deal for the first transaction, right? So we're making our money on their next deal, doing
Yep.
multiple deals over and over and over. And I feel like everyone's just trying to chase a buck, and they'll do whatever they can to get it.
Yeah, it's true. I think that is a good approach to it. Is, like you said before, break down the different people who are involved in the transaction and see what kind of relationship you can create out of that, right? Is it 5, 7, 8 people involved in anything you buy? And those are all opportunities. Those are all opportunities to grow those relationships and keep them for down the road. And some people you get along with better than others, and that's just the way it goes. It's fine. Like, not every, title attorney has to be your best friend, right? But having a go-to person for any of those roles in the transaction is only going to help you down the road.
Yeah, you know what? I remember an interesting story. I don't know if you remember this story or not, and I'm not going to name any names related to it because this is 10 years ago. Maybe it was actually another lender in town, and they were doing a project themselves. It was either a development or a flip themselves, and they were using some of their investor capital that they've raised for the deal. And the deal went sideways. The deal ended up going sideways, no. I think the deal was fine, but it took a lot longer, and they had to spend a lot more time and energy and work on the deal. And when the deal came to the end, they somewhat reneged to their capital investors, and they said, "Hey, listen, this deal was a lot harder than we thought. It took some of our own money out of pocket. It didn't work out the way we wanted to. We're not going to give you the return that we promised you." Right? Mm. They went to their investors and they said, "Hey, this didn't work out." It was actually more cruel than that. I think they said, "It's not fair that you're making more money than we're making on this deal," type of thing. "And we don't think you should be making that much money on the deal. So we're going to claw back some of yours." Just an unfair arrangement, right? They were saying, which isn't cool, right? They're trying to change up the deal. And they're like, "We put all this heavy lifting in. We did all the heavy work. You just had to sit there and collect a check. So we're not going to pay you all your interest on this deal," right? And I'll never forget it, because the investor, and we somewhat knew from a friend of a friend who the capital investor was, and I couldn't believe that they actually took it and said, "You're right. We'll come back," because the reason why they weren't happy about it, the reason why is they were scared that they wouldn't be able to deploy their money again. Like, these guys would cut them off. But at the same time, it was kind of, I don't know. They didn't treat it like a relationship like they should have, right? And I'm all about deals changing and having a candid conversation with somebody and be like, hey, listen, the deal didn't work out. Can we do some sort of workout? But so many people treat these things just like a transaction and not like a business relationship. And I feel like it could go so much further if it did on all sides of it. I mean, real estate agents are notorious in doing that sometimes. Title companies are notorious. Hard money lenders are notorious. I mean, we all are sometimes. All of us sometimes turn it into a transaction when it really should be a relationship. And I guess the true test to yourself is: are you doing repeat deals with the same service providers all the time? And if that's the case, then you're doing a good job. And if you're not, then you're not.
Yeah, and you could also look at the other test of are these people that that are possibly in a position to refer you business, are they sending you business, right? That's another great test. If that's the case, then you're probably doing right by people, right? And yeah, it's a good point before. That story was from a while back, but if you have to take a little haircut on a deal for something good to happen later, that's going to be a smart move, right? And it depends on the situation, and there's always gray area and some kind of middle ground you can find, that's an interesting example of that point.
I butchered that story a little bit. I think it was kind of like they wanted to make more in the deal and then realized, hey, we're not making as much as we want to make. We're just going to take it from our investor over here. And we all know, if you've ever raised capital, if who's ever raised capital out there, first off, add a little blurb in the comment section, a thumbs up or a like, or I've raised capital or something like that. But whoever's raised capital before out there, that your investor always eats before you do. It's that simple. If you're using someone else's money, that you are responsible for that money, and it's more important that they get their money back than you make any money on the deal. It's that simple. That's like the rule. It has to be.
That is the unwritten rule. And sorry, I was looking down for a sec. Someone in our office needed something urgently. All good though. Yeah, that is the unwritten rule. And I remember a story also I heard too from another friend of ours who does DC multifamily and other kinds of commercial stuff. He had a deal go sideways. It was in Northern Virginia, it was in Alexandria. Don't remember all the circumstances around it, or maybe they ended up bailing early. I think that what they were going to do to redevelop this particular property was coming back to be not what they had planned for, and they had a bunch of legal issues and some building type stuff that they did not account for, and so they bailed on the deal. And in order to do so, they took a little haircut to make their investor, not even a little haircut, it was something to the tune of like 80 grand or something like that. Mind you, these guys do big stuff. It's not a huge number for them, but in bailing on that deal, they cut a check for 80 grand to make their investors whole, just so they're going to come back for the next deal and the next one and the next one. And they let them know, right? They let them know that we're going to make you guys whole on this. Deal went sideways. We're going to bail on it, coming out of our pocket. And not that this is like a recommended thing. Nobody wants deals to go sideways, but they knew it was more important the next deal and the next one and the next one. And they let them know, like, hey, we're cutting a check on this and we're bailing. So it's a long-term play. It's not a short-sighted business.
I mean, think about it. Think about how many times you've heard a story of like someone being like really successful for a short period of time, and then they go bankrupt or they go out of business or they stop doing deals or whatever. Like, it's hard to ramp up to do 100 deals a year or 100 deals over a few years, and then you're going back to nothing, or you're a big real estate agent and then you lose your reputation gets tarnished. Like, can't let that happen. You can't look at this as, oh, this is a business where I'm going to go work, do my thing and get rich and just care about the individual deal. And then in a few years from now, you didn't build any lasting relationships, and you pretty much screwed every single person just to make a buck per deal or whatever it is per deal. And then you're out of business. And it's that simple. I mean, I don't care how big a city you live in. I mean, DC area is a pretty, DC area and Baltimore area where we're predominantly at is a pretty big area in general. It's still such a small world, right? So you have that whole area, then you have real estate in that whole area, then you have real estate investing in that area. And then just for us, then we have hard money lending in that area. But like, let's say you're a wholesaler or a real estate agent, like in your individual circle, you're one of many, but just as a whole, like it's niche and shit gets around pretty quickly. If there's a title company that, screws somebody, they're going to be known. If there's a wholesaler that's screwing people, it's going to be known. If there's a hard money lender screwing people, it's going to be known. If there's real estate agents screwing people, it's going to be known. I mean, this isn't like targeted to any one niche inside real estate investing. It's everything. If there's a home inspector, if there's a contractor, like that's just what it is. Like if you want to stay in business for a long period of time, you got to treat these as relationships. It's just is what it is. And again, they got to be win-win situations. I'm not stating give away the farm and not make what you're owed or what you've earned. That has nothing to do with this. It's just got to be a win-win, fair situation in full disclosure. And you know what? If you're a wholesaler, let's just say you're a wholesaler, because that's just a good example, because a lot of people bash wholesalers, which I don't believe they should. But let's say a wholesaler buys a property for gets a property under contract for $50,000, sells it to an investor for $150,000. That investor flips that house and makes 30 grand, right? Not bad. And the wholesaler made 100 grand. Who cares? Who cares? If you don't like the 100 grand the wholesaler made, then don't buy the property from them. Let someone else buy the property then. You still made your $30,000 on your flip on the deal. Who cares? And that's the case with everything. You know, if someone can negotiate a really, really good deal and it's still a win-win for all parties, who cares? You know, don't have spite. You know, build that relationship. Keep that relationship going. It'll go a long way.
Absolutely. That is the moral of the story for today. Play the long game, build those relationships. And sometimes if you have to make a hard decision, then you have to do that, because the future is more important than one individual transaction, right?
Yep, cool. Exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks for checking out the HMB podcast. Chris Haddon, Jason Balin. Check us out anytime at hardmoneybankers.com, and we'll see you next time.
All right, guys. See you soon.